My name is Ava, and I'm 25 years old. I'm a housewife and an office worker with a decent position. My husband, James, is the same age as me. Despite the ups and downs in our marriage, we recently celebrated our second anniversary. I take pride in enduring challenges, finding relaxation in my work. Thanks to my dedication, I've received multiple promotions, defying traditional gender roles. Currently on a business trip across Europe for important meetings, I found myself in an unexpected situation during a crucial discussion. My phone, set to silent mode, began vibrating persistently. Assuming it was an emergency, I checked, only to find 2 consecutive calls from my mother-in-law, Aurora. Baffled and concerned, I decided to return the call. As I attempted to do so, Aurora called again, sounding irritated. An uneasy feeling crept in, making me question whether I should have answered. Still, I composed myself and greeted her, asking if everything was all right and why she seemed so urgent. Her usual arrogance irritated me, but amid an important meeting, I aimed to avoid prolonging the call. I calmly asked, "Sorry, didn't James inform you? I'm currently in a meeting on a business trip. Can I call you back once I finish?" She retorted, "Of course James told me. What are you doing leaving your house and husband alone? Come back home immediately." I apologized, explaining the importance of my ongoing meeting. Before I could finish, she interrupted, calling me bossy and disregarding my reasoning. Insisting that today was crucial, she demanded my immediate return. Confused about the sudden urgency, I asked her why today was significant. With a smug voice, she revealed that it was her 58th birthday celebration. This surprised me, as we had planned to celebrate it at the end of the month, arranging a surprise dinner during my business trip. Growing frustrated, I found myself fed up with Aurora's attempts to bully me once again. Aurora seemed to grow more hostile each year, especially tormenting me when she knew I was engrossed in important work. During one such encounter, I reminded her, "As I mentioned earlier, I'm currently on a business trip and cannot return home." To my surprise, Aurora responded with sarcasm, saying she had spoken to James, who had taken the day off, and that all the relatives would be present except for me. Accusing me of being cold towards my husband's parents, she continued her sarcastic tirade. Unable to engage further due to the ongoing meeting, I straightforwardly expressed, "I'm sorry, but I can't attend your 58th birthday celebration, no matter what you say." Aurora, ceasing her sarcasm, abruptly declared, "Then I won't recognize you as family. You don't have to come back home. Consider it a divorce. James was too good for you." Though angered and upset, I refrained from prolonging the conversation and casually stated, "Okay, I'll talk to you when I get home. I'm sorry, but I have to leave." Despite my composed response, Aurora continued with harsh words, insisting I not come back home and that she would talk to James herself before abruptly hanging up. Exhausted from dealing with my mother-in-law, I returned to the meeting with a sigh. After 2 days and several meetings, I finally made my way home. Overwhelmed by anger and frustration towards my mother-in-law, I arrived home unable to recall my journey. Opening the front door, I heard my husband's exhausted voice welcoming me. Ignoring my luggage at the doorway, I headed to the living room where I discovered a stack of cardboard boxes. Sweaty and busy duct taping the boxes was my husband. Curious about the boxes, I inquired, and James informed me that they contained all my belongings. Apparently, Aurora had held her 58th birthday celebration without me, claiming I had neglected it and treated her arrogantly over the phone. She even spread word to relatives about considering divorce, asserting that I, an unworthy wife, should return to my parents' house. Recognizing this as typical behavior from my mother-in-law, I asked James about the situation. He explained that she insisted on a divorce, and although he didn't agree, he had to pack up my things as per her demand. "What can I do about it?" I asked, frustrated. James paused his duct taping efforts and responded in a slurred voice, "Well..." Surprised, I pressed on, "Does that mean you didn't argue with your mother? Are you okay with the idea of getting a divorce?" James explained that his father, David, advised him to comply with Aurora's wishes to avoid trouble. Shocked by how easily he accepted the idea of divorce, I questioned the dynamics of James's family, a father controlled by his wife and a son obediently adoring his mother. Feeling unsupported, I was left dumbfounded and silent. James defended himself, stating, "What my mother says is absolute. It's just until her mood is back to normal and things cool down. This divorce is just a sham. I'll come for you when things cool down," he pleaded with begging eyes. Reflecting on the situation, I realized the potential for a silver lining. While almost succumbing to self-loathing, questioning the appeal of my marriage to James, I considered this as an opportunity to reassess. Even if I stayed with James, Aurora's torment would persist, continually pushing for a divorce. Perhaps, I thought, it was time to contemplate a different path. I was fortunate to secure a relatively trouble-free divorce from James, and with enough income to support myself, living alone wouldn't pose any challenges. A metaphorical fog seemed to lift before my eyes as I addressed James, saying, "Fine, let's get a divorce." After conveying this decision to James, I made 3 calls until Aurora answered. In a calm tone, I informed her, "As you wish, we are getting a divorce." Aurora, seemingly anticipating my call, responded triumphantly, "Yes, please, go away, get out of James's house. You finally figured out that you're not good enough for him, didn't you? I am so relieved. Don't worry, I'll find James an obedient, pretty, and parent-friendly wife this time. I'm sure James will be in great demand. I'll take care of my son until he finds his next wife, so don't worry about that either." Addressing her sarcasm, I calmly advised, "Well, don't misunderstand me, Mother." Despite her apparent satisfaction, I made it clear that my decision was not fueled by the assumption she was making. "Isn't it remarkable how gracefully you handle defeat?" she remarked with a touch of sarcasm. "Well, don't let me bother you," she continued dismissively. "Oh, and by the way, Ava, I've received the divorce papers from the city office and passed them on to James. Don't forget to sign them," she added nonchalantly. Without uttering a word of farewell, she abruptly ended the phone call. James, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation with Aurora, visibly relaxed. "Is James naive?" she pondered aloud. "By the way, dear, does your mother know that you've embraced the role of a full-time house husband?" she questioned James. In response, he hesitated and finally muttered, "How can I tell her that? My mother thrives on the perception that I'm a member of the elite and employed by a major company," he retorted with a defensive tone. "Oh, that's right. Now that I think about it, there were subtle indications that he wasn't entirely truthful with Aurora," she reflected. At home, James constantly wears shabby sweatshirts, yet when he ventures out to meet Aurora, he meticulously changes into a suit. Throughout the day, he pretends to be unavailable when Aurora calls, creating the illusion that he's at work, she observed. During Aurora's 58th birthday celebration, she recalled, James, a devoted son, took time off work to attend. Aurora mentioned that, given his status, he could easily find a more compliant and attractive wife than me. She sighed, anticipating that such truths would surface after the divorce. However, she doubted that Aurora, who considered her son omniscient and brilliant, could fathom that her elite son had resigned from his prestigious job at a major company. In reality, James had quit his job nearly a year ago. Her once prestigious son, who had been a status symbol for Aurora, was now truly unemployed, assuming the role of a full-time house husband. James had left his job due to a significant mistake that led to a written apology, demotion, and a pay cut. It appeared that he hadn't disclosed this incident to his mother. The abrupt downfall from the esteemed elite road seemed to have deeply affected James. Spoiled and pampered by Aurora, he struggled with extreme weakness and sensitivity. Writing a report on his mistakes caused palpitations and nausea, making it impossible for him to even leave the house, let alone go to work. Initially, James called in for absences and applied for paid holidays. However, he eventually stopped reporting in, resulting in unauthorized absences and eventual termination. James, seemingly unwilling to seek another job, heavily depended on the income of the speaker. Yet he refrained from sharing this reality with Aurora, fearing her anger and disappointment. Despite some disappointment about not witnessing Aurora's reaction to the truth after leaving, the speaker acknowledged it was no longer their concern. James had assured them that his unemployment was merely a cover story to appease his mother. With the divorce papers in hand, the speaker promptly submitted them, signed a contract for a new apartment, and swiftly moved on. A month later, an unexpected phone call from the ex-mother-in-law, Aurora, disrupted the speaker's perceived detachment. Curious about the purpose of this contact, the speaker, with a hint of sarcasm, questioned, "What do you want from me now? Aren't you glad to be rid of me?" Aurora's response indicated that, despite the separation, the dynamics had not changed, and she requested the speaker's attention. Aurora approached me with her usual demeanor, initiating a conversation about James. Following my divorce, she visited James's apartment multiple times to handle household chores. However, on each occasion, she found James simply lounging around in his room, showing no signs of going to work. Detecting no apparent illness, She inquired if I had any insights into his situation. Suppressing the urge to burst out laughing, I casually responded, I see. Well, James has no intention of working again, ever. Despite being the one who had pushed me out, Aurora seemed to forget this fact and asked, almost selfishly, if I could do something about James's situation. In response, I retorted, "Why should I? You didn't want me in your family and had nothing to do with me." Her request, coming after a long history of mistreatment, struck me as self-serving. Then, she added, "I was wondering if you said something to James before you left." I couldn't help but wonder if she was attempting to paint me as the villain in this situation. Did she not realize that the issue lay with her son and not me? Feeling the weight of my own hurt, I responded, "I'm the one who was hurt, you know." "Oh, really? You only married James for a luxurious life, didn't you? So what's so hurtful about getting divorced?" she retorted, seemingly implying that my pain was not genuine. Aurora looked at me, suggesting that she believed I had married James for financial reasons. The absurdity of her assumption left me incredulous. "You must be joking," I replied, dismissing her unfounded claims. I was the primary financial support during our marriage, providing for James. The truth is, I couldn't afford a lavish lifestyle because of James. While I was okay with the idea of a divorce, I pondered whether filing for alimony from James was a viable option. Aurora, taken aback by my statement, exclaimed, "How dare you make up something like that, Ava? You must have just forgotten to ask for alimony. James has a higher income and position than you. If it's money you want, Eric can pay whatever you desire. After all, James is a super elite working for a major company." Aurora's response was a fervent defense, perhaps fueled by her belief in James's elite status. Sensing an opportunity to reveal a hidden truth, I decided to disclose James's actual situation. I informed Aurora that her proud son was, in fact, a full-time house husband who had quit his job long ago. Disbelieving, Aurora vehemently rejected my revelation, accusing me of lying. Her voice rose so sharply that I had to distance the phone from my ear. In response, I suggested, "Why don't you check with the company? You'll know who is telling the truth." A moment of silence followed as Aurora contemplated the implications. Finally, she hesitated, asking, "Well, what if it's true? How are we going to live? I can't manage to support my son with just my pension, and no one will consider marrying him because he's unemployed. What are we going to do?" Her tone was noticeably softened, and it seemed to be having an effect. A grin started to form on my face as I contemplated the situation. In a moment of silence, Aurora engaged in a conversation with someone beside her. After a brief exchange, she hesitantly asked, "Hey, Ava, will you please come home?" I was puzzled by this sudden request and promptly replied, "No, we're already divorced. I wouldn't return to your family even if heaven and earth turned upside down." There was a commotion nearby, and I overheard someone insisting, "I told you I would come get you back when things cool down." It was my ex-husband, James. Amidst the chaos, James's voice emerged, suggesting, "Yes, you could remarry my son again, you know." Shocked, I firmly responded, "What are you talking about? No way, I wouldn't do it for the world. Don't joke about this, Ava. Thank you, seriously, okay?" I made it clear that I had no intention of reconsidering. I reminded Aurora not to regret her decisions, emphasizing the boundaries I had set during our last phone conversation. I expressed my reluctance to be involved with a son who had an excessively strong attachment to his mother, and to avoid any more toxic mother-in-law relationships. Reflecting on our past conversations, I pointed out, "I did what you told me to do, so could you please stop changing your mind so much?" Despite this, there seemed to be a verbal jousting element in our exchange. I emphasized that she shouldn't take my words too seriously, especially considering the nonchalant demeanor I maintained throughout our conversations, regardless of the topic. "I didn't expect you to actually divorce my son, you know," Aurora expressed in disbelief. It seemed she hadn't anticipated my resolute refusal to entertain her offer. In response to her bitter excuse, I explained, "Well, I was just putting up with it. Besides, James packed up my stuff and kicked me out without any say on my part." I voiced my frustration, angrily recounting the actions she had taken against me. Aurora attempted to downplay her actions, insisting, "You see, that was just a prank." Unconvinced, I retorted, "A prank, huh? I think it's even worse than that." My exasperation with her behavior reached a point where I felt there was nothing more I could say to get through to her. Glancing at my watch, which was nearing 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I realized that my lunch break had been disrupted by this futile conversation. Annoyed, I questioned Aurora, "Are you done now?" As I called out to her, she responded with a sweetened voice, attempting to garner a positive response. Disgusted by her insincerity, I replied, "I'm going to hang up now. I have another meeting in a few minutes, and I need to review some documents." As I removed the phone from my ear, Aurora persistently called out, "Wait, Ava! Hey, Ava, say something!" Her pleading continued, with her voice echoing frustration. She also mentioned James, implying that he had not handled things correctly, leading to the current situation. I found myself scolding my ex-husband, realizing that Aurora likely blamed others for everything that didn't go her way. The mere act of listening to her became unbearable, prompting me to mercilessly tap the end call button and block her number. Soon after, James persisted in wanting me to come back, presenting a perfect opportunity for me to seek compensation through alimony. Capitalizing on his family's apparent vulnerability to legal pressure, I requested my lawyer to secure alimony, and surprisingly, James's family promptly paid the amount in a lump sum. It appeared the money came from my ex-parents-in-law, leaving David and Aurora irritated with James, pressuring him daily to find employment. In a twist, James returned to his parents' house as he couldn't afford the apartment rent. He blamed his parents for the divorce, seemingly depleting their pension and retirement savings. The family dynamics mirrored a blame game, with each party refusing to reflect on their own actions. Plans to apply for welfare were in the pipeline, suggesting a further reliance on government assistance. Reflecting on my own situation, my proposal during a business trip had been accepted, leading to the signing of a new major contract. I experienced another promotion with an increased salary. Enjoying the perks of a rich and independent bachelorette's life, the absence of in-law torment and financial dependency provided a sense of liberation. If I ever consider marriage again, I've learned the importance of conducting thorough background checks to avoid a husband overly attached to his mother or dealing with problematic in-laws.